Give me the
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And it's so exciting today. I have a sales guy, a senior sales guy here on the podcast. Amazing stuff. Brian Garback. He is Director of Strategic Accounts for SCRUM. Let's say it. Let's scream it on a Friday. GPU-powered data solutions. It is great to have you on the show, David. Brian. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem, Michael. I love talking to you. It's like taking a trip up to Philly every time I talk to you. It's great.
Yeah, man. So let's get right into it here. Sales life at SCRUM. So first, let's just start out with the elevator pitch, right? So what is SCRUM? What's the value of SCRUM?
Great. Yep. So what is SCRUM? SCRUM is a data platform. We're in the market with Snowflake and Databricks and all the large cloud providers and plenty of the legacy ones like Teradata and Netezza. So if you've played in this world for a while, you know that companies spend, I think the Snowflake run rate's now over $2 billion a year. They're aiming for 10.
Crazy.
So a lot of money goes into the plumbing. And my CEO was quite a visionary. 10 years ago, he bet on NVIDIA before anybody else saw AI coming. And he built a data platform using hardware acceleration. So rather than using CPUs like AMD and Intel that were inside of all the laptops, he said, there's got to be something better. There's got to be a way to parallelize, processing billions and billions of rows. So he built something new and novel. And he's been building a great company ever since.
Awesome. So let's talk about your ICP, right? Your ideal client profile, right? Let's jump right into it. For everybody listening to this right now, again, Brian is a stud sales guy, SaaS, right? Definitely connect with him, right? Everybody needs, if you're a startup or a small company, obviously everybody needs some help, right? So reach out to Brian. But Brian, let's talk about the ICP, right? What's the ICP for you right now? What's that look like?
Stud is very generous, Michael, very generous. I'm a guy who makes calls all day, but thank you very much. Yeah, the ICP, fairly simple. So with the GPU, with hardware acceleration, we can process lots of data, and that's where we find more value with customers. We're trying to 10x whatever somebody is experiencing today, which gives them an interest in looking at and making a big change. So what that means is, are you processing a lot of data, all the time? So we're really good at ingesting streams of data. So this might be in manufacturing where you've got an assembly line, you're looking for anomalies. And literally, if you're making chips or you're making displays for TVs, you got tens of thousands of sensors. They're firing off tons of data, and you need to be able to ingest all of it and then find if there are issues, have hundreds of data scientists look at that data. We're talking about tens of petabytes of data in some cases. So that's a great fit for us. And then we scale down. So a lot of companies are just saying, listen, I land this raw data. Like I was talking to a company that it's a monitoring software for cybersecurity, and they're looking at all sorts of logs. There's tons of them. They come in, they take hours to generate reports, and they're just trying to shrink time to insight. So where speed matters, where scale matters, where ingesting data is difficult, that's where we focus. And so how do we find the ICP? Well, we're going after lookalikes. So we're going after manufacturers. That's big for us. We're going after some banks that have kind of closed the day, make some decisions about, how am I going to manage my capital at the end of the day? And then we look at kind of, we do have plenty of large enterprise logos. You'll see those on the website. But in order to accelerate sales, just practically, mid-sized, data-driven, growing companies that have reasons to act, aren't afraid of new technology. I always try to put those guys a little bit toward the top of the list.
Yeah. So Brian is in DC area. And so what's your region? So what do you cover, right? So what region of the country? Do you cover the whole country? Do you cover the mid-Atlantic? Do they got you stuck on Hawaii and like maybe a zip code in California? Like what's happening? What's your territory?
Yeah, that's a good question. My last business was West Coast headquartered, so I worked a late day. Late mornings though, generally, right? But now our company, we're headquartered out of Israel, and I've never worked for a company headquartered, Europe or east of there, and that's been really interesting. Like I worked, at IBM for years, so I had a little bit of a dose, but this is more interesting. So the day starts early. Most of my engineering talent is over in Tel Aviv, and so I'm coordinating with them usually to kick off the day, and then doing most of my prospecting thereafter.
Mm.
I'm on the East Coast, as is my chief revenue officer and our VP of sales engineering. So I cover a lot of the East Coast, all of it but Florida, more or less, and a couple other southern states. And then, our company being based in Tel Aviv, it's been interesting, Michael. Like I got to go. Have you ever been to the Mobile World Congress before in Barcelona?
Have not been. I've been to Europe a bunch. I've not been to that area before, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. It was a great event for us, and we picked up hundreds of leads. And so and it was instructive. I'm used to going to like an Oracle event or a Snowflake Summit or an IBM, what do they call it, World of Watson or whatever we had back in the day. Tens of thousands of people always in Vegas. This is kind of the equivalent out in Barcelona. But yeah, we've got a lot of great leads, like some telcos I'm talking to in India, some banks in the UK, but definitely a lot of let's say open territory within our company over in Europe as well. So that's how you can think of me. It's kind of like DC to the Northeast and then over to Europe. But we're a small company. So where you've got hot leads and you got people who are interested, um, you know, our team raises our hands and we assign the accounts out and get the job done.
Absolutely. So a lot of startups, Brian, listen to this, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups. So first off, if you're listening to this, you need a salesperson, right? If you do not have a salesperson that knows how to sell SaaS stuff, right, you're lacking. Like you need something. So talk about, Brian, let's dig in a little bit and help people. What do you think are the keys? So you're a SaaS, you're a tech startup, you're listening to this right now, right? You want to sell stuff, right? So what's your process? Like I know what I would do, but what would you do? Like so what's the process? What do you have to learn? What do you have to know to be able to get some logos, get some accounts? Like let's have some fun here with this.
Yeah. 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 So I think I take like a sort of a different approach to this. Um, and and I think I can massively frustrate almost everyone in the company until I've sort of figured it out. So my first, as a sales guy, we're on these highly leveraged sales plans. You want to be successful, not just so you get gold stars at the end of the year and a pat on the back, lunch with the CEO or whatever, but you actually make money, or you don't make money if you don't succeed. So you have a ton of skin in the game. So, as a sales guy, I just need to make sure I know everything. I know what I'm talking about. So I tend to unwind all of the marketing spiel down through the case studies, down to like actually show me the benchmark, show me the data, give me all the proof. Like let me tie the high level statement that I'm going to put in a little LinkedIn introduction or a small request to a meeting or the executive summary of a proof of concept. But I need to know the guts of things to kind of wind things back up. And so the key there is just nailing your differentiation.
Yeah.
The tiny, startup, we're not that tiny. We raised 45 million last year. But your differentiation doesn't have to be really broad. It can be quite narrow as long as we're getting towards something like the 10x I was telling you, which is compelling enough to get people to move. So what do I do when I really first join the company? I do two things at once. It's like get organized. So get your 30, 60, 90-day plan in place. Who are you going to call? Who are the more warm handshakes you're going to make immediately? What does the territory look like? Actually plan that thing out. I was telling you earlier, but this is like SCRUM. I was bamboozled. I looked on the SCRUM website or on SCRUM LinkedIn. We have 13,000 followers. So I have literally thousands of people in that territory I mentioned who are already following our company. They're interested in what we're up to. And so that's a warm handshake waiting for me to reach out. So it's like, yeah, do all the normal sales things. And then also just figure out what the differentiation is. Don't take anyone's word for it. Go figure it out yourself. Get the proof. And all that will build muscle memory. So those two things.
Yeah, I mean, Brian and I were talking about it before, and cold stuff does not work unless maybe someone is top of the funnel, maybe they downloaded something and they're like in a funnel. But you gotta get in your warm network, right? I love that. What Brian just said, right? Your followers. I have 4,000 followers that follow SaaS talent. I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, that should be something my EA should like, hey, look at these followers, look at who they are, reach out to them, say thanks. This is great. So in terms of getting leads, right? I got how you do it. You get leads. What are the keys in the process of sales, right? You and I have done it for years, right? But a lot of people listening to this, they don't even know how to do sales, right? So what are the keys? Like differentiation, get you in the door, right?
Yeah.
But differentiation also is the sales meetings, right? So talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, one of the huge things that is surprisingly not obvious at a lot of tech companies is that um, we run B2B sales. So like literally I sell to businesses. And what does that mean? Well, you don't sell to a business, you sell to humans, but humans is key with the S on the end. Like I was just literally talking to a champion of ours at a large investment bank, and he explained how his boss 3 lines up got shot down from the guy who runs the data platforms, his boss 3 rungs up. And we've got on the operational side, somebody 2 rungs up, maybe 3 rungs up, got a C in the title, but anyway, we got their backing, but they're waiting until we build the ground game across the organization. And so the point I'm making here is closing a deal is complicated. You need tons of buy-in. Any one of these people can sour on the deal. I mentioned 2 people who are fantastic champions. There are more, but they're not enough. I need literally everybody bought in, which is completely reasonable. This is how organizations make good decisions. All of this is set up so that you don't have a bunch of cowboys creating risk and stress and chaos in the environment. So that's good. So then when I think about these leads, like you mentioned a white paper downloader, you mentioned a follower, none of that's going to be good enough on its own. Like, so the important thing for me is get organized, figure out what the total view of not just an individual is, but of a company. And when you start to put these things together, you can get really interesting insights. It's like, oh man, we've got like 10 LinkedIn followers. We met them at this conference. Actually, in our case, I stumbled on one. Hey, we ran a POC 6 years ago. And actually those people are still there. And we failed on that, but we've like made great strides. It's like a point of differentiation now that used to be a point of weakness for the platform. So if you can put all that together, then you can go into these meetings and you can have an immense amount of context. You can feel like you absolutely know the company, know what they're about, make it feel not cold at all. And then you're not hammering somebody for questions that you should have answered already. If you're asking what platforms they use or whatever, just go answer all this. You know all this. You just have to do the homework. And then have some great meetings as a result where you can learn a lot and tease out interest quickly without murdering somebody with 17 meetings and 12 demos and 100 questions. That's a good tactic.
Yeah, at a high level, everybody listening to this right now, you need a pursuit plan. First, you need a plan to get in the door, right? So plan 1, get in the door. Get in the door to someone that, I always used to be able to get in the door to people a little bit lower and then higher, right? So you get into like a person, like an architect will sometimes like get you to the right person, but you got to get a leader. So you got to know how to get in the door, and then you got to have a pursuit plan. What Brian's talking about is a pursuit plan.
That's right.
What does that mean? Pursuit plan. That means you're not selling to one person. If you're selling to the enterprise, if you're selling to big companies, you'll probably have a champion. You'll have an economic buyer. Maybe you'll have a guy that's checking you on security, like just making sure your stuff works in the cloud and all this good stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a deep dive in sales, and I love it. But yeah, let's get into it a little bit more. The differentiation. So why you mentioned some other, you mentioned Snowflake, right? Let's give you some good content here. So why is SCRUM better than Snowflake? Go.
This is a great question. By the way, it's not obvious, right? It's like I used a different chip under the hood. Who cares? Like why? Like the chip, I get it. It does AI, it does open AI, but can it like join 2 tables that have billions of rows more quickly than Snowflake? Like Snowflake's been at it for over a decade, and man, they've got thousands of engineers. The other thing, Michael, is none of these companies are standing still. They're all innovating, and they've got bigger teams than we do. So so what's the durable differentiation that we have? And so I told you I've been inside the company. I've tried to unwind a lot of this. For me, what's so interesting, and I didn't really have a grasp of this early on, is how important and how difficult it is to take transactional data and ingest it into a warehouse. So think that manufacturing use case where I said every one of these sensors is firing off just like a little blurb. Here's the reading from my vibration sensor at this timestamp. Here's my ID. Tons of this data. When you actually just ingest billions and billions of these rows and you compress the data and you run some statistics and you get the data ready for analysis, that in and of itself can be between 25 and 66%, let's say, of a customer's workload, just like moving the data over and formatting it.
Right.
And so what's so interesting, we're really damn good at this, like really good. It's surprising how good we are. We're like way faster than, and I, not to make it a competitive session, right? But like some of the names you've dropped, we're 10x better. Or much less expensive as well. And so this is where like these telcos that think about you're walking around with a cell phone in your pocket and, it's sending pings all the time about where you are. Is the network strong? Is it weak? Are you making calls? And so it's, you're looking at network resiliency. It's just an immense amount of data. And practically it's, hundreds of terabytes of data a day. And practically we've got these GPUs that each can do, a few terabytes, I think what is it, like 3 to 10 terabytes an hour. And so we've got like just the way to have a smaller hardware footprint, process more data, get insights faster, do it cheaper. And it's a durable differentiator because frankly, no one else is using GPUs aside from a handful of open source projects that are very interesting. But they're like open source. They're 80-20, right? They're like 80% of the way there, but they never get to the last mile. So yeah, so that's what we do. That's what we do.
So what's the compelling event normally, right? So are they, hey, we have a project where we have to build a warehouse, or is it we have a ETL project, or we have,
Yeah.
is what's the compelling event normally, right?
Yeah.
With they have something. The company typically has something, right? But what's the compelling reason why they look at SCRUM?
Yeah, I mean, that's challenging. So this is part of the challenge. Like definitionally, they have something because they've been running workloads. Literally everybody already is using something. So the compelling events, maybe there are a few I'll call out. Sometimes you just get some guy who's like refreshing a data lake. He's like, I've been running this, these Spark jobs for 5 years. It's running on old hardware. We're going to make a change. We're thinking about, these two cloud vendors, maybe keeping this thing on-prem and SCRUM. Why don't you guys come and show us what you can do? So kind of
Nice.
classic RFP, somebody coming to us, or we've snuck in the door at the right time. I think that's one. Another one is just these specific industry verticals. So we had, I mentioned this telco company that had just come to us and they said, hey, we're trying to run some really interesting analysis where we're looking at location data and running geospatial analysis. We can get a much better feel, not just for network uptime, but just get a sense of who our customers are, how they spend their time, like how are they trying to make calls? Are they inside, outside buildings? Like how can we make sure to provide the best customer experience possible?
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't able with the current tools to run this kind of geospatial analysis very effectively. So they looked at a bunch of our quals, a bunch of our references, and reached out, we reached out to them based on something we saw on Reddit, as it happens, and then said, hey, we've got a good solution to your problem. So basically, it was a platform that was okay for them. They were trying to do new things. So we're kind of angling in, and then, pardon me, I don't know if you can hear these pings. Look at this. This is a sales guy's life. Somebody is filling up my sales systems with a lead list. Give me just a second here.
Nice. No worries, man. No
Focus.
worries. He's getting leads. Maybe he can give some out to the people listening.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
if you reach out to Brian, you will get a lead. No, we're just kidding. We're just kidding. We're just kidding.
Yeah. So maybe the last thing is just sales. Sales, like classic sales, where we do some things better, cheaper, faster. So we're just reaching out and it's like, hey, are you ingesting a lot of data into maybe Snowflake, maybe maybe Databricks, maybe something else, and just trying to like do outreach where we say this customer has use cases that fit things we do really, really well. And so it's just the the hustle of being in the trenches. So those are the three ways we probably kick things in and customers come to us. And we've got tons of great demand gen motions with events and webinars and everything else to keep some smoke going where people can stumble on us, a little serendipity.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. What about so where is SCRUM in the life cycle, right? So you said, I think you had mentioned they got 45 million in funding. Where are they right now in terms of the round? And I'm sure they have a lot of clients, they have a lot of traction. How's business been? So high level, what's that look like?
Yeah. The company was founded just over a decade ago by Ami in Israel, and they kept the company, rather small for probably the first, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years. Pardon me if I don't have the history entirely right,
That's
but a
all right.
lot of that is just, it's deep tech. They had some call center use cases they'd started with, a handful of other smaller kind of, let's say, design partner / customers. Landed our first manufacturing partner probably 5-6 years into the business. Like it takes a while to incubate this technology. I talked to a CTO on Tuesday and he said, the numbers, he was like, do they still hold, Brian? He said, it's about $100 million to go build a database company. And I said, it's not far off, right? If we just raised 45 and the earlier funding rounds, I think we're less than that, or maybe we're around 100 million total. So yeah, you're right. So where we are is we built basically a data platform. We take SQL queries. SQL is just a software, a computer language that everyone uses to pull tables and merge them together and engineer data. So the thing works. It's differentiated. We've got a cloud product that we're releasing here in maybe just a week, which is very exciting for us. So rather than software, we're now going to have a managed service across several different clouds. So, we're still, I'd say product dev is not done. Differentiation is not done. We're always improving our query plans and our execution and such. But yeah, so we're Series C, and we've got a decent enterprise sales team. I think we're about 120 or so people, if I have that right.
Nice.
Still pretty heavily R&D. I think it's probably 2/3, 1/3, if I had to guess, although I haven't looked at an org chart recently. Yeah, and so it's a reasonably mature company. Great, I'd say top talent a lot of places, and my CRO, I'll have to talk to her and see what the plans are for large scale growth, but still looking for marquee banners, repeatability, driving deals, but we're in that fun startup mode where it's like, hey, it's still possible to double the revenue in a year. It's possible to go from growth. It's possible to do big things, seminal deals. So it's a fun time. It's my first time at a Series C company. And it's great. You feel like you got a decent product, you got the wind at your back, you feel like the world's still your oyster. Like I told you, my territories, kind of whatever you want to make of it in a given day. There's so much green field. Yeah, so that's where we are.
Great stuff, Brian. So it's awesome having you on the show, talking a little sales. Awesome stuff. So it's great. I'm looking forward to following you. So it's been a great show. Thanks a lot for being on.
Thank you,
And
Mike.
looking forward to continuing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. Thanks for the insightful questions. It's great to go back and forth with you.
All right, cool. Take care.